Oh, Tyler is so lonely in the Twitter space. Please join him.
I know, right? It's just Cheryl and I in the Twitter space.
In space, nobody can hear you scream. It's an old one.
Okay, now
Clubhouse is the best.
we've got somebody coming.
Clubhouse Super Alice.
Okay, so I did I did a story in the DMs a minute ago. Where did it go? Oh, this is the fun one. Starting off with some good news. A real nice fun story for everybody. Where did it go? There it is.
Is it the safe distancing in the metaverse?
Yes. So the first story is just a cute little fun one that I can pin to the top of the clubhouse.
Yeah,
room.
our pins to Twitter space.
And here it comes. Okay, here we go. So, just a fun little warm-up story. Oculus announces personal boundaries for Horizon Worlds. Today we're announcing personal boundary for Horizon Worlds and Horizon venues. Personal boundary prevents avatars from coming within a set distance of each other, creating more personal space for people and making it easier to avoid unwanted interactions. Anyone have any idea what kind of unwanted interactions they may be referring to? Personal boundary will begin rolling out today everywhere inside of Horizon Worlds and Horizon venues, and will by default make it feel like there is almost 4 feet distance between your avatar and others. Over time, we'll continue to make improvements as we learn how this affects people's experiences. Personal boundary prevents anyone from invading your avatar's personal space. If someone tries to enter your personal boundary, the system will halt their forward movement as they reach the boundary. You won't feel it. There is no haptic feedback. This builds upon our existing hand harassment measure that were already in place, where an avatar's hands would appear if they encroached upon someone else's personal space. I didn't know about that. We are intentionally rolling out personal boundary as always on by default because we think this will help to set behavioral norms, and that's important for a relatively new medium like VR. In the future, we'll explore the possibility of adding in new controls and UI changes, like letting people customize the size of their personal boundary. Note that because personal boundary is default experience, you'll need to extend your arms to be able to high-five or fist bump other people's avatars in Horizon Worlds or Horizon venues. Virtual reality.
It had nothing to do with the alleged rape, that story, but yeah.
It's funny, they don't mention it at all.
I can imagine how antisocial the metaverse will be.
I love that we've solved rape in the metaverse with a few lines of code. I mean,
well, you can't do French kiss there then.
No French kissing in the metaverse. That's a good point. No kissing at all. It'll be a kissless zone.
And no handshaking.
Too. Hang on. Features to sort of
now this raises an interesting question. I had not really considered the whole kissing thing, but some couples are going to want to kiss in the metaverse, like long distance relationships. And to that point, some people are going to want to do more than kissing in the metaverse if they're in a long distance relationship, right? So, what happens if two avatars? Can you make a baby avatar in the metaverse?
A virtual baby, yes.
And put it on the blockchain.
You have to ask Heyman. Heyman seems to have a solution.
Can you make a baby on the blockchain?
I can.
It's called a virus.
Believe you just said that, Tyler.
What if it's, but then you could have a digital virtual children. Couldn't that be a thing? I mean, people are buying virtual land. Why not have virtual children?
Well, it would be a digital chop off the old block.
Twitter Spaces. Just to add a little bit of more context to this, the Horizon World ecosystem, they also have another sort of mechanism
your safe zone. So now you have 2 layers, sort of. You get to go into your own personal safe zone, and now they have this new personal boundary. But also to tie this into another feature that's coming out on a different platform, a different app called VR Chat. In that particular platform, they're actually going to allow avatars to touch each other, and that will either simulate some form of physics collision or some form of trigger that causes the avatar to react in a particular way. And so if you, for example, touch an avatar's head, you'll see the other avatar's head like actually move. Or if you, do some particular action, that other avatar will react in a particular way. And so this whole aspect of, taking the interaction of avatars to a whole nother level is something that probably Meta is definitely keeping their eye on. And couple this with that news story that came out, I believe, a few weeks ago that someone was groped in the metaverse. They're definitely taking privacy they're actually, keeping an eye on something like this, because this could be something very important in the long run, especially with these new avatar features that are starting to roll out little by little.
All right. Thank you for the additional context. So that was just a fun little warm-up story that I found. And someone named Alexandru Voica, who is the EMEA Tech Communications dude for Meta. I assume dude is his pronoun, by the way. As growing up in Southern California, our preferred pronoun is dude, by the way. Like, what's up, or bro. What's up, bro? What's up, dude? That counts as a pronoun, right? Because that's what we use down here in Southern California.
Correct.
And I assume this dude or this bro, I hope that's his pronoun, is the EMEA Tech Comms for Meta, covering innovation in AI, peanut butter, open source, maple syrup, Guns N' Roses, and the metaverse, according to his bio. And he says about this that today we're announcing personal boundary for Horizon Worlds. Personal boundary prevents avatars from coming within a set distance of each other, creating more personal space and making it easier to avoid unwanted interactions. Great. We are now completely safe for the most part. Now, if you can stop people from stealing from you, or, Twitter to a degree, from what I understand, and Evan would know because Evan's kind of a power user over here in Twitter land. Evan, isn't it true that you can build a list of words that you could kind of disappear from Twitter so that you would never see the word Trump, for example, if you put that on your...
Yeah, it's like whitelisting or, blacklisting certain keywords, or, obviously it's like blocking a person, but for words.
Right.
So
muting, yeah. You can mute words or hashtags or whatever. And so I wonder if that as well could go into the metaverse. I assume it could, where if somebody tries to say Trump and you have Trump on your, mute list, then, you wouldn't hear what they're saying. And we could essentially, everyone could tailorize the metaverse to be a safe space for them. Ostensibly, it's just I'm just going through a little thought experiment here. Just like they solved the rape issue with a few lines of code, I assume everyone could customize their experience so that they feel safe in the metaverse. Technically, digitally, I think it's totally doable. I guess you would need
doesn't it diminish the horror of rape to actually call what happened like I was raped? Back here we are again with the journalism, clickbaity.
Yeah, we need
titles.
You're right.
Come on, rape is a horrific thing,
right.
And what happened was nasty, but not even in the same
right. Because you can't
universe.
Be penetrated in the metaverse yet, as far as we know. But maybe grope. It would be a more...
I think groping is also a horrible act and really a personal...
I know, I'm not trying to diminish groping.
Yeah.
What I mean is the one of the key differences between rape and grope is grope implies you weren't penetrated, and I'm getting kind of lost in the
Hey Tyler, yes. The incorporation of being able to detect certain keywords or recognize certain keywords by incorporating some form of machine learning algorithm within the voice component adds another layer of privacy issues and insecurities. I think a lot of people are going to be wondering whether Meta is listening into my conversation, whether they're taking my data. Similar to how people are talking about this on Clubhouse. Is Clubhouse, listening to our conversations? How are they, using these conversations? It's definitely a good solution, but I think it also adds another layer of privacy issues on top of that. It's something that I was talking about.
Okay, well, check this out. That leads to another fun little warm-up story that we saw in the DMs, did we not? Who had the story about India and Clubhouse? Cheryl, was that you?
No. Is it Vinay?
I think it was Heyman.
Okay.
There was
anyway, Tyler, can you please save me in Twitter space? I drop off.
Okay, sure. Here we go. Well, there was a little story about a court case in India. We read this a similar story recently about how you remember we read the story where some young lady from India was in a clubhouse room, and she said people were saying very offensive kind of verbal sexual harassment of sorts, and just really nasty stuff.
Oh yes, the Indian politics, right? You say
right, and then apparently one of the young men who said that stuff has now been punished by a court, and he needs to go to some kind of social training or something like that. I want to find the story so we can really be more accurate in describing what it's all about. But I don't remember where I saw this story a few hours ago.
It's BBC.
It is BBC? Let's see if we can find
it. Tyler, just check if this is the news I sent you right now.
You just sent it right now. Okay, perfect. Here it is. The woman facing rape threats and abuses on Clubhouse is the headline. And that tells you everything you need to know that this whole click. By the way, I mean, let's just... I know we've done this 100 times, but apparently we have to do it 1,000 more. So let me read the story, and then we'll circle back and be like, what do you think would be an appropriate title for this story? I'll give it away. I'll give the punchline now. Here's the title they went with on the BBC. The woman facing rape threats and abuses on Clubhouse. Huh? Is this the older story? This is the older story. I want the updated story of what happened, the punishment for the guy who was being abusive to this lady in Clubhouse. There's a new update that this guy... so BB, if you can find that, or if anyone can find that, please DM it to me so that we can read it. I forget where I saw it. Anyone know? Nobody knows. Okay.
I don't know the story, Tyler, but I believe that's a step in the right direction, because a lot of times people on Clubhouse, off Clubhouse, on social media don't realize the boundaries that they are crossing, even despite of recognition that you are encroaching in someone's private space, unwanted attention, unwanted communication. They don't take silence as a response, that communication is not invited or accepted or welcome, and they keep on insisting incessantly by spamming or sending you multiple messages despite of no response received. And then when you don't respond, then they act as if something is done wrong to them, as if they deserve that attention and response somehow. So I really believe that Clubhouse or social media related coaching is required for people to... I mean, I would believe that people have that common sense, but obviously they don't, so many of them. So they need to learn what really boundaries are, and how to accept that not everybody is going to respond to you just because you want them to. And if they are crossing certain boundaries despite of refusal, then punishment is needed for them to learn, if that's the way to learn. So I'm applauding India if they have taken that step.
Check it out. So here's the story, and thank you to whoever just found it and sent this in.
I just DM'd you the article.
Good. I think BB sent it in. Let's see if Cheryl's sharing the same one. Oh, There's two different ones. BB sent one from the Indian Express. Jason found another one, and now Cheryl just found one. So let me read BB's first. It says, from the Indian Express, Clubhouse case, accused granted bail to undergo mandatory behavioral counseling. This is the one I was looking for. The bail was granted to Yash Kumar Parashar, 22-year-old law student, on multiple conditions, including a 15-day mandatory behavioral counseling by a qualified professional for the crazy crap he was spouting in a clubhouse room. To which, I gotta say, I kind of like it, and I want to take a vote. I'm really curious what other people think in terms of, should a court get involved in this kind of a way? Is this how we want to address things like this? It says a magistrate court on Tuesday granted bail to one of the three accused arrested by the Mumbai Crime Branch's Cyber Police Wing in the Clubhouse app case for allegedly passing lewd comments on women and auctioning their body parts on the voice chat app. The bail was granted to Yashkumar Parashar, a law student, on multiple conditions, including 15-day mandatory behavioral counseling by a qualified professional. The court will issue a detailed operative order on Wednesday. Lawyers appeared on his behalf. One of the lawyers said cyber police could not prove that Mr. Bashar and Yash Kumar, my client, are one and the same person. Well, that could be a problem in India where you have a limited number of names for an incredible number of people. We had told the court that fake accounts with photos of my client were used. He's a bright student with a bright future and does not have a prior criminal record. Well, this is where voice printing would come into play. Quote, the court pronounced that our client will have to go 15 days behavioral counseling. He will have to stay in Mumbai for a month and report to the investigating officer. My client was granted bail. The court will decide on the bail pleas and because there was two other people, Akash Suyal, 19 years old, and Jaishnav Kakar, 20 years old. Not surprisingly, 19, 20-year-old guys do really stupid stuff, almost without exception. I'm not excusing their behavior. I'm just saying it's not surprising, is what I'm saying.
Hey, Tyler, can I jump in? This is correct because they're going after the people, not the platform, right? So they're going after the actual content creator offenders, and they would be liable for these acts if they did them anywhere, right? So they're just saying, just because you did them on an app instead of in a bar or in a town square or somewhere else in real life, that this is also real life and has consequences. Back to Elle's point, that there are consequences to your actions, right? You're not anonymous here, and you're not somehow sheltered. This is public, and so that's what this is basically saying and holding. So they have decided to hold them, give consequences for those actions. As to broader training for everybody on the app on how to act, I don't know how that would ever happen. And Aaron, maybe if that is happening to you, you could probably block those people. But I think it's once your actions rise to a level that is otherwise somehow actionable, that they will take action, that you're not sheltered just by doing it online.
Right. And so here's an interesting aspect of this, is she went to the cyber police. Now that in itself is a really incredibly interesting concept, that because our behaviors are going to be shifting from the physical world to the metaverse, we're going to need metaverse police, cyber police, that they're going to impose actual punishments, like physical jail. You could go to a virtual jail, metaverse jail, perhaps. But this is such an interesting concept that we're going to...
These are going to be... these are people that are probably more trained up on these types of platforms and how they work, and that is going to be needed everywhere, especially with all the growth in online, and as you noted, the metaverse and all of this stuff. I mean, U.S. has people trained up in this as well that are regulating specialties and all of this.
Here's where it gets really weird, because normally when you have, for example, a rape case, both people are in the same country. But what happens in a rape case where and by the way, each country is likely to have their own laws in these. What do we call them? Cyber police. You're going to have cyber laws, right? And what happens if somebody from one country rapes somebody from another country, where it's okay to rape? There's no punishment for raping people from Azerbaijan, for just as a crazy example, or Ghana, but it is against the law to rape somebody from Canada or Norway. Okay, so what happens then? This becomes a really interesting development where we're going to need a UN, an international body to get involved, and that's where it's wild concept, because luckily for this Indian lady, her verbal raper, they're referring to it as a rape, by the way, in this example, this verbal raper also was Indian, and therein was the problem. What if that person wasn't Indian? What if he was Norwegian? What happens then? Well, there would be no recourse. There's nothing. So, or would India try to extradite that Norwegian on her behalf and say, hey, Norway, one of your citizens is a bonehead. We need them to face charges in India for something they did in the metaverse. You're all speechless. I am too. We've never had to think about it.
You just get really crazy. So what if somebody's caught, like, let's say you're chewing gum, and in the country, like you're in a room on Clubhouse or Twitter, and you're caught chewing gum online, but the room is based, I don't know, it's based on Singapore. Could somebody come and arrest me for that? I know that sounds absurd, but I mean, where does it start now?
You guys, the cause of action is going to have to be redefined in the metaverse. So as you said, rape is current. I don't know how it's defined. I'd have to look it up, but it's a physical act, right? And this is going to be a virtual act. So those physical laws may not apply. So chewing gum online is going to still be, that's a drawing or whatever you want to call it.
Wow.
But as you point, it's just going to be cross. There are plenty of already cross jurisdictions.
What if I'm drinking virtual alcohol in a country where it's illegal to drink alcohol?
Good one. Or what if I
redefine those?
What if I have an NFT of a really nice bottle of red wine? And I'm in I don't know, which country, name a country where alcohol is illegal. There's several.
Huh? But the Muslim country?
Indonesia.
Indonesia is?
Yeah, some countries it's illegal even for tourists to drink alcohol. So, but yeah, it's just a really interesting concept. I mean, what if I have an NFT? It gets very weird. Anyway.
But I want to clarify one point, Tyler. Chewing gum is not illegal in Singapore. Selling gum is illegal.
There you go. You have to smuggle it.
Gum, yes. But you spit on the ground, that's illegal, I think, in public.
No, littering is, of course, they will fine you. You can litter all you want. You just have to pay a lot of money. Oh, yeah.
I stand corrected. I apologize. I didn't mean to misplace.
I'm going to be littering like crazy in the metaverse. It's me throwing wrappers everywhere. So,
but nevertheless, this sort of speaks to why Meta would want
first of all,
not to get sort of in the middle of any of this.
Let's just be real. Are there going to be trash cans in the metaverse, or are we going to have to? We're going to have to litter. There's not going to be much in the way of trash cans. Something tells me. And are people going to recycle?
You will have a magic word to make trash disappear. You don't need a trash can.
Well, there are is that
so you'd have the recycling one separate.
They're going to recycle. Yeah, you have to sort your trash.
Right now, still, this is like the game world, right? Even right now, we can imagine it as a game world. So even the game worlds can have the whole world mapped into that game scenario, but still, it's under the game. So no actual government is the real power in that game world. So I mean, in the world, in the metaverse, we can have each country mapped into that metaverse, but still not the real government. So if we treat it like a game, so that means it's just harassment. So that will bring us back to like this news. We will treat this harassment as if the girl sue the man, then it will make a case. But if she didn't sue those guys, then there will not be a case. Then
Sounds good.
that's how I think. Yeah.
Okay, so then remember I said there was two versions. One second there was two versions of this story. It's actually a different story that Cheryl found from the Independent in the UK. It says police arrest 18-year-old for creating a chat room to abuse Muslim women. Chat rooms come close on the heels of two cases where pictures of Muslim women were put up for online auction. The Delhi police have arrested 18-year-old from the city of Lucknow for allegedly creating a chat room targeting and abusing Muslim women. The action was taken after a screen recording of conversations on two chat rooms went viral on Twitter. The recording showed 18 to 20 participants discussing the pink private parts of Muslim women and Oedipus complex involving a Muslim mother, among other lewd remarks. The names of the groups were Muslim Gals Are More Beautiful Than Hindu Gals, which was created on January 17, and Girls Don't Have the Privilege to Marry Upper Caste Boys, which was created that evening. A user named Bismillah, whose real name is Raul Kapoor, well, that narrows it down, there are probably only 100,000 of those, was reportedly behind the first chat room. Kapoor revealed that he created the room as per the instructions of another person with the surname Salos. According to Hindustan Times, the teenager claimed that he handed over the position of the group moderator after creating it. While Delhi police sources said that they have already identified the person behind the second username, details are yet to be made public. On January 18th, Delhi Commission for Women chairperson issued a notice to the Delhi police demanding action against the participants of both groups. The Delhi police lodged police cases against unknown persons under various sections of the Indian Penal Code following this. These chat rooms come close on the heels of two cases where pictures of Muslim women were put up for online auction on January 1, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Well, the interesting thing here is that there was physical consequences under laws in a country, but I believe only because all the participants were in the same country, to my point. And it gets very interesting what happens if the person's not in the same country. Then would there ever conceivably be, would Interpol ever need to, what would Interpol do if there was ever a cross-border issue in states that did have what's the term I'm looking for?
Extradition.
Extradition. We don't know. I've never heard of such a case. Anyway, it's just weird to think about because with the metaverse coming. So, by the way,
Tyler, can I just say one thing? Hi, Dr. Fran here on Clubhouse.
You can say something, but make sure it's not something that will offend me and cause me to call the police to arrest you. But go ahead.
You got it, buddy. All right. All right. So no, I'm just to use the old-fashioned term of meta. The meta concept here is of trolling, and anytime you have a virtual environment, you're going to have trolls, be they people who put out horrible verbal stuff, or someone could go into Decentraland and create and script something that will spawn millions of voxels and shut down the service. Somehow or other, we're going to have to find a way to mediate these. For young lawyers in the audience, this is probably a great field to go into. I'm done.
Great point. Yeah, the whole new law around all this stuff is just, wow. It makes my head spin thinking about what we're getting into. Because as usual, the technology is going to create scenarios that it's going to take a long time for the lawyers to catch up to. So,
hey Tyler,
yes,
Tyler, this is
Tyler,
Alex
I
real
had a
quick.
point.
Hold on one second. I think Alex first, and then who was that second voice that I heard?
Aram, this is Aram.
Aram. Okay, Aram, let's do Alex and then Aram. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tyler. And thanks everybody. My concern is didn't we have a story a few weeks ago about someone that was going to create a room or someplace on the metaverse or where they can verbally abuse and one of those destruction rooms and type things? Do you recall that? It was like where people can go in and shout. Maybe it was about shouting and using their anger to let their frustrations out. Like, and then, so what do we do with like in situations like that where maybe they're actually using people's real names and or putting pictures up of them? Does that make sense? I wanted to bring that up.
That doesn't ring a bell with me.
AI bot, abuse the AI bot.
Yeah.
The
So,
news was.
and then let's go to Aram, and then I want to go to Dr. Fran's tweet that she just did. It's totally related. Aram, you wanted to say?
Thank you, Tyler. I was thinking in terms of solution, like a global body that would devise laws that cover the entire globe and a contribution from all countries into that global body. Could be like a UN like situation or a division of Interpol that looks over anything virtual related in terms of formation of laws and how they kind of communicate with different countries to enforce these laws in virtual world.
Well, it's funny because if we get into digital identities, so like decentralized digital identities, you might opt into something like in America, what we have is like this Better Business Bureau, where some businesses say, hey, if I do anything wrong, you can file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, and then anyone can go look up me at the Better Business Bureau and see if there's any complaints against me. And that's how you know I'm not a bad person, because you can go and look at my profile now and see for yourself that I have no kind of negative stuff filed against me. And we might all agree to do that. We might all agree, hey, you can go look at the good person body and see if there's any nasty things filed against me here in the metaverse. And if there's not, then you can somewhat assume that this might evolve into being a default way that people lodge complaints against each other, and perhaps they can be, what's the word I'm looking for, arbitrated or resolved, so that if you pay, a jury hears the both sides of the argument, makes a decision that in fact that the claim is valid or not valid, so that it's removed against you. But if it is valid, then it stays in your record against you. You almost develop a sort of a public police record of sorts, so that people can start judging who are good actors and not. And if you do, and then eventually, once that gains enough momentum, if you don't opt into it, then you're kind of outing yourself as a potential bad actor, because why aren't you opting into letting us see this as part of your digital sovereign profile? You have something to hide, that you're not willing to attach your profile to the online record of complaints, so to speak. So I'm just going through the mental gymnastics of what seems kind of likely at the time, what seems likely in 2022 to evolve over the next 10 years as we digitize every aspect of our lives. So, by the way, Dr. Fran just found a related case about a safer metaverse. Last week, I was interviewed by news reporter Molly Clayton at the Mail on Sunday in the UK. And it says, a mother's sex ordeal at hands of virtual reality gang within a second of entering online metaverse. Well, it looks like we did see
this is the same case.
Yeah, we've seen lots of these metaverse rape cases, but ostensibly we think Facebook deftly addresses that today with this safe distancing. Amazing if we could apply such a simple solution into the real world of, I'm just imagining what amazing that we're able to address something so efficiently in the digital domain. Okay, so we got to get into the top stories as we always do. We're a little behind. There's our horn. And happy Friday again, everybody. Happy February 4th. The top story today is from Amazon, and it's about Amazon, and it's about Amazon's quarter earnings report. So that then it's good. If they're reporting it, it says Amazon reports revenue up 9% year over year, net income up 98%. My Lord. Amazon Web Services, their cloud revenue up 40%. Holy cow. And that sounds good to me. Amazon, and then they've now for the first time broken out advertising services revenue for the first time of $10 billion for the quarter. That means Amazon is now making more than all newspapers combined in advertising, essentially. So, wow, holy cow! And that's not even a strong focus for them yet. They're dabbling. Holy cow, unbelievable! And they announced they're going to raise the rate of Amazon Prime, the membership thing, by $20 more per month, up to $139 per year, so about $14 a month. And yeah, $15 a month, and they'll do that on February 18th for new members and blah blah blah. Also, Amazon spending on video and music content hit $13 billion. And those two things go together because they're spending that $13 billion to get more video content, mostly, to keep people paying for their Amazon Prime. It's like an alternative to Netflix. But it's kind of bundled because you get tons of other benefits as well. And Amazon says Prime membership price change does not affect the Prime video-only subscription, which will remain $9 per month. Right, because they can't raise prices at this time because they're so competitive with Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and all that. So that's the top story. Amazon having a rather impressive quarter earnings. I want to turn it to Ken, because we were DMing after the last tech news about quarter earnings reports, and Ken, you had a few thoughts you want to share on quarter earnings.
Tyler, can you save me on Twitter Space first?
Sure. Ken, you with us? If not, we will go to the next topic, which is from Bloomberg. It says they have sources that in a company-wide meeting over there at the Facebook, somebody named Mark Zuckerberg told staff in a company-wide meeting to focus on growing Facebook's short video products. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? Do you know? I know what he's talking about.
TikTok.
I think Dr. Fran is, as usual, has figured it out. TikTok is kicking Facebook's ass. That's what's happening, and it's really not a big secret. It's quite an open secret, and Mark can't buy TikTok, and that's kind of a problem for Marky Mark and the Facebook bunch. So he's said in a company-wide meeting to focus on growing Facebook's short video products because Mark doesn't like getting his ass kicked. And he cites unprecedented competition from TikTok. Zuckerberg quipped that if he started to cry, it wasn't because of the day's news. His red, teary eyes were the result of what? ... I have to click to find out myself. It says, his red, teary eyes were the result of a scratched cornea. Okay. And what else here? The Facebook founder said Thursday, attempting to lighten the mood. Oh, yeah, because the stock is down 25%, what have you. But yeah, Facebook's going, it's in a tough moment. It's in a real pivotal moment in the history of Facebook, where it's shifting from its tradition, how it got to where it is today, and it needs to make a full-on 90-degree turn into the metaverse and competing and addressing the threat of TikTok, which is cannibalizing its traditional business. It's got simultaneously Apple, forgive me, I mean this in the most technical way, neutering Facebook's traditional business model, hindering, whatever you want to say, and simultaneous to Apple kneecapping Facebook with the data that it needs for its traditional business model, you got TikTok stealing all of its new users. Imagine dealing with both of those simultaneously. That is no enviable position, and Facebook knows it can't rest on its past progress. It needs to reinvent itself. Incredible time ahead for Facebook. So there's that. And kind of related stories to that is that Facebook stock is down 26%, erasing $250 billion in market cap. Holy cow. And also other related stories from Bloomberg that Meta's underwhelming quarter results are evidence of the challenging competitive landscape, especially from TikTok, adding ammunition against the FTC's antitrust suit. Exactly right. Because now Facebook can go into this FTC antitrust suit and be like, you realize we're getting the shit beat out of us by TikTok right now? They are kicking our ass all over the court, all over the playing field, all over the soccer pitch, whatever you want to call it. They're dominating us. They are laughing at us. You want to bust us for antitrust? And you got TikTok over here in the US just making a mockery of us. And they're right. This does give ammunition to Facebook in that case. And this bad quarter, in a weird way, does help them in that FTC case. So the next one says Facebook's monthly active users, blah, 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 blah. Facebook's chief financial officer says Apple's, we read that yesterday. Never mind. Okay, third topic. Are we ready? We are. The next big topic is that Apple says it will charge a 27% commission for in-app purchases made using alternative payment systems in the Netherlands following a Dutch legal decision. Well, hang on a second. Hold the phone, Tyrone. You're going to charge apps a 27% commission for in-app purchases made using other alternative payment systems. Say what now? The whole point of using other payment systems
That's what they're going to lose.
Is to avoid paying you the 30% tax you were charging in your own payment system. Granted, that involved a credit card charge of about 3%. So essentially, okay, sure, you're going to not charge the 3% you were charging, but instead of charging 30, you're going to charge 27%, which is what essentially you're making on that 30% internally, minus the credit card fees. Say what now? And no doubt Apple's going to say, right, well, the Dutch court ruled that we have to allow you to have the option to have other payment systems other than ours. Okay, fair enough. You can have them, but it doesn't say anything that we can't still charge you the commission. So we are going to charge you the commission that we previously were charging because the court didn't say anything about that. And then the court's going to say to itself, oh, you shady mofos. Oh, hell no. That is not what we meant at all. The whole reason that we ruled that way is so that you wouldn't charge them. Make no mistake, this will go back to the court, and the court's going to be like, I can't believe you guys are this shady, Apple, that you assumed that you're totally skirting the intent of the law. The whole purpose of the law is that they wouldn't have to pay you this fee. That's why we said that they were able to do. We never dreamed that you would take this approach, but now that you have, we're going to call you out for it. This is my prediction. And in fact, I'm so confident in it, I'm willing to take bets on it. So Apple today provided some additional details about how the real question is, how the hell is it going to do this? How exactly will they know that your app is now charging your users directly? Well, they've obviously updated their operating systems from the user's side so that they can see if the user is paying you money somehow to your, I don't know, some system that you've cooked up to charge your users. How are they doing it? That's the really interesting question. Apple today provided additional details about how it will allow dating apps in the Netherlands to offer alternative payment systems in compliance with the legal decision that Apple is simultaneously appealing. Yeah, no surprise there. The biggest tidbit from this is the reveal of the reduced commission structure. Apple typically charges 30% on purchases made using its in-app purchase system. The commission levied on alternative payment systems has been set at 27%. Netherlands dating apps can choose to offer alternative payment systems by linking out to a website. Right, so how's Apple going to know that you're doing that? And how are they going to know that the user's paying on that site? Or using a native in-app flow. Well, I can understand if it's a native in-app flow, how Apple can track that. Apps wanting to take advantage of this functionality must include special entitlements in their app binary. That's how they do it right there. They're going to force you to include additional code in your app if you're doing this, so that they can track this stuff through an API. It says right here, apps wanting to take advantage of this functionality must include special entitlements in their app binary and call an Apple API. Yeah, screw that. I'm not going to do that. Are you stupid? Before redirecting the user to the payment gateway. That presents a model sheet that tells a customer they are being directed to non-Apple payment services. On the face of it, it's the 27% commission does not exactly seem like a compelling option. No, obviously, when Apple's own in-app purchase system is easy to use and deeply integrated into the system. Apple says that the 27% cut is based on the price paid by the user, net of value-added tax. It says this is a reduced rate that excludes value related to the payment processor. Each month, developers will have to send a report to Apple that lists their sales. Get out of here with this nonsense. I can't wait for the Dutch court to hear what Apple's planning here. Go ahead, May.
Hey, Tyler, this is a very interesting one as well, because the Dutch are very much looking forward to take a good, strong stance in the crypto space as well. You know, I mean, they're really quite young and innovative, and they're getting super hot and sexy on this whole crypto, DeFi, NFTs, Web3, metaverse space. I mean, I'm seeing it with a number of speaking events that are kind of popping up more frequently now that the spring is coming up in Holland. But do you remember Mali? I told you about Mali. Remember we were talking a few months ago that Mali was like a unicorn or something like that in Netherlands? And Mali has an API. So I think this is going to be very interesting, because they'll probably take it to the Dutch court in Den Haag, the High Court. And at that point, they're really about fairness. And that's not a really fair percentage. Right. So they're going to probably, in my opinion, I think they'll come to some fair, equitable, adding water to the wine, and come to a happy place in the middle. Yeah. If there is really a happy place, but also buying themselves time, because Adyen's opening up massively here, and I believe Adyen's owned by PayPal. And they're the fintech company that was purchased around 2017, 2018. They were acquired by PayPal. So it's very interesting to see, because Netherlands, Amsterdam specifically, has a massive fintech line in it. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch, to see what the case results in. I would be very curious to see how they decide, or how they vote.
I'm making a very easy prediction that the court is going to slap Apple's ass for doing this.
Oh yeah.
And updates.
But they may also. Yeah. But Tyler, it's also the culture that they might, and they will, if they see that Apple is, if they could smell or sense that Apple's taking advantage, which clearly from all that we're saying, it sounds like they may be, then yes, your prediction could be very right.
Fine. If I was the Netherlands, I would fine Apple $10 billion just for doing this, and say, if you don't like that, you can stop selling in the Netherlands if you like, but if you want to keep doing business in the Netherlands, you got to pay $10 billion, because clearly you don't respect our legal system, and you're spitting in our face, and here's a $10 billion fine for doing that.
And the thing that I really do like about the Dutch is that they really push back on that.
Contempt of court. Really, I honestly think this is a form of contempt of court.
Yeah, they'll.
Yeah, but Tyler, I got to ask about this title, because the way it's just reading to us, I mean, it does sound like exactly like you're saying, and they're not stupid. So I'm wondering what else is going on here.
Well, they're not stupid, but the point is they've now figured out a clever temporary way to effectively neutralize the threat of app developers getting off of their in-app payment system. Nobody's going to go through the headache of setting this up if they're going to have to pay this 27% tax still. And so Apple knows eventually they're going to lose this.
Tyler, but one thing...
Wait. 9 months from now, when this plays out, Apple will lose this. And Apple knows they're going to lose this, but they're going to have 9 months of continued in-app payments, because people are not going to bother to get off of it knowing about this. So my point is, 9 months of in-app payments for Apple is billions of dollars. So Apple effectively saves billions of dollars just by throwing this out there, knowing that it's only going to buy them another 9 months. But hey, it's billions of dollars, so we just threw this out there knowing it's going to save us billions of dollars. So I don't blame Apple for doing it. That's why I'm saying punish them for doing it, because we need to. This is just shady behavior. You should see the comments from tech folks on Twitter talking about this. Just, it's just obscenely egregious behavior. Sorry, go ahead, May.
Tyler, no, don't apologize, because there's something really powerful here, especially being on the ground here in Holland. There's something to really look at, which is a couple of things. One is ACM, the Netherlands Authority for Consumers and Markets. Look, I did my MBA here, and the Dutch are really sharp with their business. They really are. And at the end of the day, they're pretty aligned, very close to Germany. But what one must understand, too, is that Germany and Netherlands and France and Italy, you have to understand the seat of the EU. You have to understand who has power in the EU. It's Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Poland, and Netherlands in that order. That means that's the number of seats that they have on the actual EU board, the Ministry of the EU, which runs the consumer laws, the ACM. They work together. And the interesting part about them, the highest seats is Germany, but Netherlands has moved up in the number of seats that it has. And with the fact that Facebook is having such a prominent position in Netherlands as well, with Facebook having an office here and having such a strong, like we talked about, what they're going to be purchasing. They're putting a data center here. This is something really bigger, looking at it much bigger. And I think it was Jennifer, I think they've recognized Jennifer's voice. I believe what Jennifer's saying to some degree is that there's a bigger interactive strategic narrative underneath all this, but not a negative one that's not been seen before, which means Apple likes to push their envelopes a bit, like they like to push and take hits and stuff because they want to push the edge. Remember when Greg Duffy was in the room and how we used to talk about this stuff? So the main thing is that Apple's been the Dutch regulators have been after Apple since last year. They've been after this for a while. Since October of last year, they've been watching them. So they literally have been watching them carefully and probably just bringing up the case because they've obliged Apple on Christmas Eve last year to adjust those unreasonable conditions. They ordered them. So that was not a simple smack on the wrist. They ordered them. So if it is what you're saying, that it seems like Apple's just being like, yeah, whatever, and that the Dutch court's not going to take too kindly to.
Yeah, so check this out. So Jason just sent an article that I remember reading back in November. I think most of you will too, where in the Apple versus Epic case, which is all about the ability to do alternative payments, where the federal judge ruled, you're going to have to allow app developers to have alternative payments. And then Apple did some shady stuff, and then the judge got pissed off. Do you remember that? I remember it very well.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but I haven't had COVID yet. So anyway, a federal judge ruled that Apple can't push back the deadline. Oh, that now I remember just by reading that first sentence. Apple was like, we want a motion of stay until we're gonna fight this case, and we want to leave things as it currently is until we've had a chance to appeal this because we're very confident we're going to win the appeal. You remember that? And then the judge was like, no, that ain't how this works, Apple. I made a ruling. Yep. The ruling goes into effect now. You don't get to have a stay until your appeal is heard. Just because you're confident you're going to win the appeal, I ruled that you have to allow these apps to have alternative payment gateways. And right now, turn them on now. And Apple's like, well, no, we're going to wait until our appeal's heard. No, the judge is like, no. Let read my lips, dumbass. I'll turn them on now. That's the ruling.
Tyler, are these the in-app purchases that you're talking about from the Apple Store?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Perfect.
Well, inside the app, like when you're in the app and you're like, I want to buy, some virtual sword for my character.
Correct.
Or a level up in a game.
So when you're purchasing from the Apple Store.
Right. And you can purchase it inside of an app.
I'm curious though, because because obviously my iPhone is I mean, obviously I'm in Holland and I'm looking at the experience UI. There is some, I have seen the APIs come forward though as well, where it's sending it to Ideal, it's sending it to like Molly's sending it to different areas. Like, so it is, there's some areas, not with the App Store, but they already are like, there's like, if you go to use Apple Pay, you could click it and it lets you select other ways. So they may also kind of consider moving it. I mean, they might have an out anyway, I think, but they're still going to have to pay the fine for sure.
Yeah. What's interesting about that though is that the people that were buying things in the Fortnite app, they already have an account with Epic Games. So when they buy something, they're under the impression they're buying it from Epic, not from Apple. And so for Apple to charge you for what you're purchasing, doesn't that become like double taxation? And maybe there's one of the attorneys in the room that could maybe elaborate on that, but you can't be double taxed, but that's exactly what would happen if you paid Epic and paid the tax and then paid Apple in addition to that.
So the next big topic is that Activision Blizzard did its Q4 revenues of $2.16 billion, down 10% year over year. Net bookings of $2.4 billion, down 18% year over year. Companies are not supposed to be going down, especially video game companies during COVID. As a video game company, COVID was your time to shine, and you should not be going down during COVID as a video game company. But this is now kind of Microsoft's problem, because Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, right? So, but they kind of knew that was going to happen, obviously, because they were looking at the books before they bought them. So there's no big surprise there. So the next big article is from Bloomberg that 2 more Google employees from Google's ethical AI research group leave to join Timnit Gebru's new nonprofit research institute, adding to the turmoil at that unit. Google's ethical AI research group lost 2 more employees, adding to the turmoil at the unit, studying an area that is vitally important. And I remember that was X, who used to be very active in Clubhouse and was active for a period of time in tech news around the world. And
she left? Is she one of the ones that left?
I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah, she's super smart.
Super smart, yeah. And she was in our DMs. I used to DM with her quite a bit. Lovely individual and super smart, as Jennifer just said. I agree. And I wonder if that's who let's open the article and see who they're referring to, if they're named anyways. Alex Hanna, a research a scientist, and Dylan Baker, a software engineer, resigned from Alphabet Unit on Wednesday to join their former colleague Timnit Gebru's new nonprofit research institute called DAIR, Distributed AI Research. And I think the nonprofit part of it is what adds a lot of the legitimacy to it. If you want to do legit research, having a profit motive kind of skews you one way or another. So the next big topic is from CNBC. That's Snapchat, now known as Snap, reports its first quarterly net profits with $1.3 billion in Q4, revenue up 42% year over year. Very respectable. $23 million net income. That's a profit. And revenue grew 64% for the year to $4 billion. Stock rises 40%. Holy smokes. Which the first thought that comes to my mind is they must have had quite a few short sellers on them who are now covering their shorts. I wonder if Ken is with us and if he agrees with my thought on that. Ground control to Ken. Calling Ken Frankel. Ken's caught in the metaverse. But 40% jump. Holy cow. Congrats to everybody who was long on the Snapchat prior to...
They had like 4.72% short.
4.72% short previously?
Yeah, it's not huge, but...
Right, that's not so big, yeah. The next is Twitter begins expanding testing downvoting replies globally on web and mobile. Downvotes are not public and will be used to tweak which replies Twitter shows. Votes aren't public and are used to surface relevant replies. If you've seen the option to downvote replies on Twitter, you're not alone. So now they're going to roll that out. And then our friend Jane Wong in Hong Kong, as usual, has found in recent days some new Twitter features coming down the pike, as they say. And some of those are, give me 2 seconds, that they're going to allow for much longer video uploads. And I'm trying to remember what the other one was. It was kind of
it's long form articles. So basically,
That's
Tyler,
right.
today you have to kind of screenshot an article if you want to put a long, and they're going to let you do it natively with like a new format. So basically, kind of eliminating the 280 character limit.
Yeah, you can write blog posts full on. It's a competitor to Substack or Medium, which ironically,
it's going to be fantastic.
I think so too. I think this is brilliant. And kudos to Jane who finds these things. That's a big one. She's already got 700 retweets and another 700 quote tweets. I just retweeted her finding of her tweet where she reveals it, called Twitter articles. It says, create a Twitter article. And you can write a blog post essentially now in Twitter. This is fantastic. And the question is, will it be part of the paid? I assume they might make this kind of one of the features of Twitter Blue, their $3 a month subscription plan, because I can see people paying for that. Especially because they're also rolling out Twitter super followers. And so you could be like, hey, if you want to see my articles that I write in Twitter, you got to be a super follower. Oh my goodness. Watch out. Now they're
I mean, there's a class of Twitter users, many of us on the stage, who would pay a lot of money for all this stuff. Totally. Like I pay for a lot of different MarTech tools. I pay $20, $100 a month for this kind of stuff. They have to wake up and realize they can have a killer subscription business.
Yeah, I think they are. But the question is which features to include. And that's why this writing Twitter articles, if this could be a subscription newsletter, like if you become a super follower and you'll get access to my audio rooms, my newsletter, my article, my Twitter articles, my blah, 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 because otherwise you get to see only the headline of the article or whatever. Clinton, you got your hand up. What's on your mind? Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Tyler, for having me on here this morning. I'm Clinton DeVoe, write with the Ottawa Hill Times in Canada and Troy Media. And Tyler, you're correct. This is a wonderful option or feature, or however we want to describe that. It's a real opportunity for existing writers in the media, to share more of their thoughts, more of their craft. And, it's great because often, having to compose a tweet in 140 characters or whatever can be good for entertainment purposes, but not exactly the best thing, for good in-depth news coverage. So, look, I agree with you. This is an excellent addition, and I think it's an important addition.
Yeah. So here's an interesting...
Yeah. So, Tyler, I just to interrupt, I sent you a survey that looked at the time spent on social media platforms by user.
We're going to do that right now. One final thought before we get to that is just a little insider baseball for you. The original CEO of Twitter, not the creator of Twitter, but the CEO, what it was Twitter was born out of another company. God, what did they call it? That podcasting company. Evan, you might recall.
Don't remember. It's been a while.
Podium or something like that. Anyway, Evan Williams was the CEO. Jack Dorsey was just a developer at the company. So was Biz Stone. And then it was a podcasting company way too early, like 2006, way before people were podcasting for the most part. It was too early. And they knew they needed to pivot. So they had a sort of internal hackathon, and Jack Dorsey is like, I got this idea for this real-time communication thing. And Twitter was born out of that. Well, he created it as part of his employer's company. So the intellectual property belonged to the company, not to him personally, Jack Dorsey. So Evan Williams was the CEO. Jack was a developer, created the, what we know of as Twitter. They gave the money back to the original investors of the podcasting company and created a new company called Twitter with new investors. And some of the original investors in the original company reinvested in the second company. But this gave a lot of more equity to Evan Williams and other people in the Twitter camp. And not everybody from the original company would transition to the new company. And of course, other new people came to be part of the new company, Twitter. And I was asked to be part of the new company, Twitter, as it was starting, actually, because Evan and I were kind of friendly at the time. So, and obviously I regret not finalizing that and making that happen. But and I was incredibly excited about Twitter early on, obviously. But the point I want to make is Evan, with Jack being the kind of creator of it, along with BizStone, that weekend they kind of crafted it together. Eventually, Evan stepped out of the picture as a CEO, went over to Dick Costello for a while. Jack eventually came back and is now running the company. Evan went and started Medium. Medium is where you write articles and you can be paid. And so the idea that Twitter is now going to have articles is, to people who know, the family history of Twitter, as I just described to you, it's kind of interesting because it's Twitter competing with Ev Williams' own kind of format of blogging. And again, a little additional further cultural context. Before the podcasting company, Evan was the creator of Blogger, the blogging company. So Evan has a very long history in blogging platforms and article writing platforms. So for Twitter to jump into the Substack / Medium space by the way, it noticed that they didn't do it while Jack's at the company. Jack himself has now stepped down and is no longer the CEO. And now the new CEO clearly had this in mind and wasted no time putting this in place. But this probably was not something that ever would have happened while Jack was at the company, due to the fact that Evan has Medium. But the new Twitter CEO doesn't give so much he isn't politically tied on that issue. So here it comes. So now we get into, Evan shared with me a report, some data about the average time spent per day by U.S. adult users on social media.
This could be a Jeopardy question.
Absolutely, it's a Jeopardy question. So here it goes. Which social network has the most minutes per day by American adult users?
Twitter, TikTok,
Snap,
TikTok,
Facebook,
Twitter,
OnlyFans,
Instagram,
YouTube, Snapchat.
I'll tell you what. We have 5 answers ranked in order. And
hold on a moment. Did you say by adults, Tyler?
Yes, I did.
As defined as 18-year plus.
yeah.
LinkedIn.
Ooh, interesting. That's the only one that isn't listed as the top 5 that we have. That's probably number 6. So we have the top 5, the data points on the top 5. And
TikTok.
Going in reverse order. And by the way, there was only 5 guesses. I listened closely to the guesses that people were shouting out, and you all guessed the 5 dead on. So going in reverse order, with 29 minutes, Instagram averages 29 minutes per day. In a very close, it's like very close with 4th place and 5th place, and 5th and 4th and 3rd are all very close. 29 minutes, 30 minutes, 31 minutes. It's Instagram in 5th, Snapchat in 4th, Facebook in 3rd, with 29, 30, and 31 minutes respectively. Now we get into the top 2. Drum roll, please. With 35 minutes, we have the Twitter. And in the number 1 spot, let me ask you again. Well, now you can just by deduction figure out who's number 1. We have TikTok. We have the TikTok with 38 minutes. TikTok takes up more of its users' time than any other social media platform in the U.S. this year, Adult TikTok users will spend an average of 38 minutes per day. Twitter ranks second with 35, and you know all the rest. So there we go.
Tyler, do you remember our late
And it's the newest in US among the five.
Hold on, Cheryl. Go ahead, May.
Do you remember that our late Trader Joe Chris used to always call it digital opium?
Yes. What I want to know is how long the kids are spending on it.
That's what's scary, Tyler, because if the adults are spending that much time, and also during COVID, many adults, also a lot of people had to pivot and they went online to get business. So I would like to see personally a comparative number on adults from before COVID to after COVID. And yes, I would agree with you. I'd be scared to see the numbers of kids in the younger generation that are spending time on TikTok.
So,
and to dovetail off of that point, as we spoke earlier.
Hold on, Katie.
One at a time, we can't even hear, it's muffled.
Hold on. Was that Johan trying to jump in?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's go Johan and then
YouTube and the other ones.
Yeah. YouTube isn't listed, interestingly. Yeah, that is interesting. Katie, you wanted to say?
Just wanted to dovetail on the point about Twitter, and if adults are, it's number one for adults. And then previously we just talked about Zuckerberg's mention of TikTok, that these social media companies will lean towards replicating the stickiness of the form factor of TikTok, which is super short term. So then the question for all of us is, what does that portend for our attention spans and generations coming forward?
That's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point.
It's also the model. So, Tyler, the difference between Instagram and TikTok is Instagram is more of your friends right now following. I mean, with Reels, they are getting a little bit, broader audiences. TikTok is about people like you. They're extremely good at serving up people like you. And that's why their advertising model is so good, is that you see people like you showing things to you versus both Facebook and Instagram are based on your friend network. So it's in addition to the short form video, which is again, going to our attention deficit issues, but it's also the algorithms.
Yep. So the next, I have to say thank you to Frank, who DM'd me to remind me that the podcasting company that birthed Twitter was called Odeo. So thank you for the reminder, Frank. And the next point to discuss is, let's see here. So we did the Snapchat one. Twitter is doing the downvoting. We covered that. The next is that the information says they have sources that Tiger Global has raised $11 billion for its latest VC fund as of January and expects to close the fund at $12 billion in March, up from $10 billion target set last year. That's an incredibly huge VC fund, by the way, but they'll spend it. They've been, my God, are they doing just an incredible volume of investments.
Tyler, did you cover the financial ask from the Bored Ape Yacht Club and of Andreessen Horowitz? Did you cover that?
100 something. What was it? Remind me.
I'm not sure. Let me just double check. But it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah, they were trying to raise a round from Andreessen Horowitz. That's very unconventional, by the way.
But can you see the strategic logic why they would do that as well now that they're linked in with Adidas? And can you imagine the tsunami of consumers that are going to come in from Adidas's brand? So they probably would need capital to help build out and be prepared for that from a fashion perspective, because retailers are going to shop.
Yeah. So next up is a bipartisan group of U.S. representatives reintroduces the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act, which would exempt paying taxes on realized crypto gains under $200. The legislation by a bipartisan group of House representatives would exempt crypto gains under $200, which means everyone's going to be charging each other $199 for everything in monthly installments and to avoid paying taxes, apparently. Then we have Bloomberg says that UK's CMA, the market authority, fines Facebook £1.5 million, so about $2 million, during its Giphy probe, saying that it failed to inform the CMA of key U.S. staff leaving, a breach of its merger investigation rules. Okay. Next is from Reuters that Nike sues online reseller called StockX for selling unauthorized NFTs of its shoes. Oh, here we go. Here it comes. Right back to the laws and the metaverse. What are the laws of the metaverse? This is going to become the hot new question. Can I not sell NFTs
Not
of?
new, Tyler. That's they have IP protection in that, right? So it's just applying it to a new platform, a different platform. So I can't go out and make pictures of Coca-Cola and try and get royalties on that.
Yeah. Let's read and find out what the essence of this is. Let's see here. And I'll pin it to the top of the Clubhouse room. Hopefully, Cheryl, if you could share it to the top of the Twitter space. It says, Nike cries foul over virtual shoes, suing retailer that sells NFTs of Nike's sneakers. The sneaker giant Nike sued online reseller StockX in New York federal court on Thursday for selling unauthorized images of Nike shoes. Now, does Nike own the images of their shoes? Can I not sell an NFT of my Nike shoes that I bought? Or even if I didn't buy them, can I take a photo of my cousin's Nike shoes, mint them as an NFT, and say, hey, here's an NFT of my cousin's shoes that just happen to be Nikes? Does Nike own the photographability of their shoes?
I think the restriction would be in industrial or commercial application. So I think this may or may not qualify as an artistic expression. So it'll be interesting to see what the court says.
Nike said that StockX's NFTs infringe on its trademarks and are likely to confuse consumers. Now, I know why Nike's doing this, because Nike wants to sell their own digital Nikes as NFTs. And this is going to impact their ability to do that. Its lawsuit asked for unspecified money damages and an order blocking their sales. Detroit-based StockX, a platform for reselling sneakers, I mean, that's their business, handbags and other goods, was valued at more than $3.8 billion last year. So this ain't no small fly-by-night company. Nicholas, are you in the audience? Let's get you in on this. A representative for the company did not respond to a request for comment, nor did Nike or its attorneys. Nike said StockX last month began selling unauthorized NFTs of its sneakers, telling buyers they would be able to redeem the tokens for physical versions of the shoes in the near future. Well, that might be true at their own store, right? So, could not a store, hey, welcome, Nicholas, could not Foot Locker, for example, which sells a ton of Nikes, say, hey, we're Foot Locker, buy these NFTs of all these different shoes, Adidas's, Nikes, Reeboks, whatever, and then you can redeem them for the physical shoes.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Nick.
So this is first of all, thanks for inviting me. So this is exactly the route of travel for the blockchain and for the technologies that create unique identifiers. So the root of trust for anything that relates to Nike should be monetized by Nike, and Nike has an identity as a corporation, and its shareholders are the current owners of that brand. So you can think of a brand and a company, because a company in law has been incorporated, so it has the rights of almost of a human, right? Incorporated, and the blockchain essentially enables that brand to become a branded currency. So it is the monetization of the intellectual property that makes for the heart, the energy that is behind Nike. So the brand, without the tick, without the name, it would just be any other shoe. So the essence of the business is its brand name, and that you'll find that with any major brand, and they will protect that brand name, and they will license. Once they create a branded currency, they can enable participation by people who are effectively signed by the name Nike at, for example. So the way that the future will work is that they shouldn't really want to dissuade StockX or Bored Ape Yacht Club or whoever, even, I mean, in the case of Adidas, they will want to do deals with those people. And what you'll want is that when someone mints a unique version of something where Nike or Adidas or the brand is the IP owning entity, it will have to have the signature Nike attached to it to say that essentially that license has been paid, and it will likely be paid in some form of token or some form of licensing currency, because that's the way the internet should work. So the evolution of where we're going is to understand that anything that has an identity that is unique and is owned is essentially an NFT, you could say, because it's unique, it's one of one. There is only one Nike that is, has made its legal stance in the world, and that it will enforce its rights, but it can be very, very evolved in how it and who it allows to use its name and to work with it. And that can work at the speed of the internet and be processed as verifiably provable, so that when you're buying it, you're buying the real thing, you're not buying the fake. And then if, in this case, if it was Supreme, or I can't remember who said it was, that StockX wants to attach a unique artistic expression with their stock and wants to be approved by Nike, all of that chain can happen and be provable, and therefore create a secondary market where people can trade. Now, the question is, will they trade that on StockX, or will they trade that peer-to-peer? Because when that happens, you should be able to buy in your wallet all of these things and store all these digital goods. So this is the future. These legal enforcement are to ensure that you don't get a Wild West from the brand's perspective, because if you allow StockX to do it, then what's to stop someone else doing it? So they have to enforce, and then this new way of collaborating should come about, and that's the expectation.
Nicholas, Tyler's question is this. So let's use the current laws that we have on the books and current real things. Okay, if I own a Cadillac, a certain model of a Cadillac in a certain year, okay, in a certain color, like a physical car, I get this. Once I own the car, I can sell the car. I don't need Cadillac's permission. Okay, so why can't I just take a picture of that car? Okay, with maybe even has dents in it. This is really unique, or whatever it is. Why can't I take a picture of that car and then sell it as an NFT, just like I could sell the actual car today under the law?
I agree. That's where the law and the brands will have to effectively establish what is art versus what is commercial image rights, and that's exactly where we're going.
Yeah, but that's going to take years. So in the interim, this Nike issue, this Adidas issue, because we're working under current laws, I think the brands have a problem until they get new laws passed.
I think they'll establish commercially the route of travel, and by signing something, it will become clear that if it's not signed, if that contract is not signed by the identifier, the self-sovereign, or the corporate, the self-sovereign in this case, the self-sovereign identifier will effectively stamp it with its provenance. That's what all this cryptographic stuff is. It's a timestamp, right? So they will stamp it with their identifier, Nike at. Then no one will want to trade NFTs that are not not stamped. So that's how it's likely to happen, and they will set they will likely set that in a way that says the
so you get an
partners.
NBA player who's willing to sell his shoes, okay, that he'll sign, and he'll put the identifier down,
Right.
and
So, and that's what happens with collectibles, right? So
yeah,
it has provenance. All the blockchain is a record of provenance. So if they were worn by Michael Jordan, of course those are going to be more valuable. And him saying and signing that is, of course, what makes it. Otherwise, you can't prove it. Everything is about verify, don't trust. We're moving into that world. It's very exciting.
But isn't that how Ferrari operates? Like when you buy a Ferrari, for example, there's a contract that says like you have to check in with Ferrari before you can sell your Ferrari. And so I don't think it's going to be that strange. I think the question is, does an NFT equal commercial activity or not? And I think this case, I'd be curious what people think. Does an NFT qualify as a commercial endeavor, or does it qualify as a more artistic expression?
I think it must depend on the scale, right? So if you're a company like StockX, or if you're Supreme, or if you're commercially benefiting from that name, then I suspect it's a decision that gets made is when you go to enforce. And of course, if you're trying to sell something in the physical world or the digital world where you're a business that is centralized, that you can be identified and that you can be served with legal notices, then you will be served, and the law will operate in the same way. Just because it's an NFT doesn't change the law. It depends on the owners. If it was a community that did not have a centralized counterparty to be served that did it, that would pose a slightly different question. And, would the company want to enforce against the people? For example, if everyone decided in the country to wear a Nike tick and make a shirt, in infringement, would Nike try to sue everyone in America, the individuals? That's a different question. And so I suspect it's the intention of commercialization.
So, Nicholas, I have a kind of out there question for you. When Elon Musk offered a right to purchase a Cybertruck for $100 pre-registration, and then Ford did exactly the same thing with a Lightning pickup, is it possible that NFTs might be deployed as a way to reserve a right to purchase at a fixed price? Is that something where NFTs might end up playing a market role?
I think we should be clear that NFTs are just unique identifiers. They have this name that's grown out of and a way of being understood. But at the end of the day, think of an NFT as a unique identifier, and then you can, in the Ethereum version, what they call the 721, it's not really composable, so it doesn't have rights management. But unique identifiers that do have rights management, signature management, etc., and the ability to create their own tokens and currencies and public blockchains in and of themselves, which is what a unique identifier should have the power to do in our conception of what the future will be. So an NFT or unique identifier will be able to act as the digital conscious agent that can exploit its rights and limit its users and make decisions just like a human does in the physical world. That's what the ideal unique identifier will do for its digital owner, for its human owner. That essentially means that you can, if you were to do what Elon did, you're effectively creating, if you were to do it in a token format, you would be creating a security, because you're effectively fundraising for that car by taking in deposits which are for a future deliverable that is not yet delivered, that has risk, etc. You're really taking a punt as an investor. But when you're doing it in a company, if you didn't do it within the Tesla business, it would be regarded as a form of fundraising. So it would be likely that you were creating a security. So this is where the lawyers come in, and this is where the enforcement of who you sell your NFT to and what you promise them drags you into different regulatory environments. There's a derivatives regulatory environment, there is a currency regulatory environment, there is a securities regulatory environment. Each one depends on who you're selling to and how you're marketing that product and or service or future deliverable. And that's where, all the different, stuff that we've been talking about for all these years, where you hear the Bitcoin guys, which are really a currency or a commodity, and the Ethereum guys are currently regarded as as not a security, but when they move to their new proof, they might be categorized as a security. So everything that you do depends on who and how and for what purpose, and whether there is a centralized entity or not.
Okay. New York Times, a bipartisan group of House lawmakers write to Amazon's new CEO, Andy Jassy, questioning why Amazon sells a preservative which is being used as a poison by users to commit suicide, which can be delivered next day. And apparently enough volume of people are doing this that they even have Amazon also recommends when you buy this particular item, so you can see what other people who purchase that item are also purchasing, which not surprisingly are other things that would assist in committing suicide. So lawmakers are writing to ask, why are you selling this? Toshiba will spend about $1 billion to build a semiconductor fab in Japan, which is cool. And that's pretty much Pinterest did their earnings report quite strong, up 52% year over year. Stock is up 20% as a result of their earnings report. And things are getting just started for Pinterest. As soon as they start adding in the financial element of social commerce, Pinterest is in a really good position when you start adding sales into that whole ecosystem.
Hey Tyler,
Yes.
while you're on that subject, just based on what you and I DM'd each other about yesterday, I just wanted to make a point to help people, because there's a lot of disinformation going on and stuff in the stock market about some of these stocks. There was a whole room yesterday about the Facebook, and the 25% decline is not actually that abnormal in a tech stock or a biotech stock. That people are making it sound like this never happened before, except for maybe Enron. The magnitude of Facebook's loss was a lot because the market cap was very high. Because okay, but in 1987, the entire Dow Jones Industrial Average collapsed 25% in a single day. Okay, I mean, so when you have a stock that has a high valuation, either a multiple of revenues, PEs, if they even have one, when you have that, okay, and you have any kind of disappointment, as you described yesterday, that's why a stock can go down 25% in one day. The people are running rooms on this app talking about, like, oh, that never happened before. When did you ever see a 25% one day decline? And I just think they missed the fact that it's because you have a premium valuation is really the issue. Okay. And anyway, so I just wanted to make that at least that one accounting point. And the other thing, because you just mentioned the building a fab plant, just because of some basic accounting stuff, because some people had some issues yesterday understanding how like R&D works in through the income statement. Most R&D is actually expense. That means they take it in the current period. But like when Intel or whoever's building this fab, Toshiba, when they build a semiconductor plant, they'll spend, let's say, $1 billion. I don't even remember what number you gave, but sometimes they're now more than that. But if you spend $1 billion, you may spend that $1 billion over 3 years, but you'll expense it over 40 through depreciation. So it shows up in the profit and loss or the earnings differently than it would show, than R&D shows up. So there's a lot of different things about financial reporting that people need to start getting a grasp on before everyone starts running headlines and running rooms and talking about things that they don't know what they're talking about. I was in a room yesterday. They didn't know the difference between GDP and CPI. So, I mean, anyway, just throw that out.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you for that. Okay, one more before we get into the tweets is a new one that News Corp, this according to the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, which owns Fox and it's Rupert Murdoch's company in the U.S. here, discovered a hack on January 20th, so a week ago or so, that accessed emails and documents of some staff. Expert says the hack is likely linked to China. The attack discovered on the 20th affected publications including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and the company's UK news operation, which would be Sky News, amongst others. So I guess to be continued. We will see if it does turn out to be China. Okay, now the tweets. And the first one up is from Katerina from NPR, that a satellite finds massive methane leaks from gas pipelines. A satellite has detected massive leaks of methane, a powerful greenhouse gas from a natural gas plant and pipelines. Most of these releases are deliberate and are spottable by satellites. So we can start busting down on these boneheads. And the next one is from Sarah, who joins us from Stockholm, from Sky News, that Scandinavia to become almost entirely free of COVID restrictions starting February 9th. Countries in the region continue to see rising numbers of cases. Boy, is that true. Holy shit, the charts for Denmark and Sweden are obscene and absurd. And yet, it's not translating into many deaths, which is leading them to conclude that it's over, at least politically. So Sweden says starting February 9th, which is, 5 days away, they're basically scrapping all of the regulations related to COVID. The next is from Katerina, that MIT scientists have not only found a new way to manipulate magnetism in a material with light, that's bizarre in and of itself, but have also realized a rare form of matter. Pause for effect. The next one, also from Katerina, it says a research team reveals how carbohydrates interact. Chemists unlock the key to improving biofuel and biomaterial production. God, let's hope so. And older adults who experience less decline in fluid cognitive abilities show larger gains in crystallized abilities, a new study reports. The people with less memory loss and old age gain more knowledge. There it is, okay. And a flying robot with wings controlled by an electric field instead of heavy motors and gears slightly outperforms insect muscles. And that can be potentially profound. If we start accurately mimicking nature in our robotics, shit could get crazy really quickly. Because nature, we are, in some sense, robots that have evolved over time. And we are, in some sense, code. If you think of a tree has certain, code programs have inputs and outputs, as every programmer knows. And a tree has inputs and outputs, like an input is water and sunlight, and the outputs is growth and oxygen and what have you. It's a tree or a plant is a sort of a relatively simple program, although miraculously designed. Obviously, I don't want to belittle nature in any way. God knows, I spoke to them. Somehow, I magically spoke to Mother Nature on psilocybin one time. So I'll be the last person to minimize the majesty of Mother Nature. However, on one level, it is sort of relative to a human, a relatively simple program. But by extension, you could then say that humans are a more complex program. We also have inputs and outputs. And how things that are said to us are inputs, or things that we see or read or observe are inputs. Everything that comes in our eyes and ears and mouth and senses are inputs. And then we have outputs, which can include our mental state, physical state, what have you. And so if you think of us as a kind of program and sort of the physical manifestation of ourselves as a form of a sort of robot, if we start designing robots in line with those kind of biological, evolutionary, processes, things could get very interesting very quickly. And that's what caught my attention about this article, about a new flying robot with wings controlled by electric fields instead of motors, which is how humans are currently designing robots, and gears, outperforms insect muscles. And that's what's so interesting, is insects are almost miraculous in their efficiency, and yet we might be able to design something similar if we start aping and mimicking biomechanics in our robots.
Hey Tyler, can we get Elon Musk to design a robotic bee so we can help support the bee population? We need it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great example, by the way. So we could potentially do that. That's what's so bizarre. Yeah. So we covered the Nike brouhaha. Katerina also found an interesting one about anxiety and neuroticism, which is apparently linked to ASMR. And for those who don't know what ASMR is, I only do because I count myself as one of the lucky people who experience it.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, I feel that I am. So ASMR is autonomous sensory meridian response, sometimes referred to as autosensory meridian response. It's a tingling sensation that typically begins in the scalp and moves down the neck, at the back of the neck and upper spine, a pleasant form of paresthesia. It has been compared with auditory tactile synesthesia, which I also experience, which is often called frisson, which is if you listen to particular pieces of music, you might feel what's called a body orgasm, or a very interesting tingling sensation. And apparently 20% of people experience this. And again, I would count myself as one of the very lucky people who do experience that. And if you also are one of those such people, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's quite a beautiful thing. So, but they're separate, but obviously related, where the frisson, which is the response to music, where you feel a tingling sensation in your body. It's like a very minor orgasm. It's lovely for those who aren't blessed with that. And it's very specific to very specific music and parts of songs, that particularly amazing chord changes. So even great jazz or great classical music is ripe for that type of experience. And ASMR is a little bit different. There's no music involved. It can happen when you're rather calm, watching a beautiful sunset, for example, and you'll feel a rather remarkable tingling sensation that starts in your scalp and works its way, goes down the back of your spine and goes down your back, almost like this beautiful shivering experience. And it's incredibly pleasant, I must say. And it is kind of similar to frisson when you listen to that audio response. Anyway,
What's your playlist, Tyler? Share your playlist.
I in fact have made a playlist of my favorite songs that induce the most amount of frisson. I have created such a playlist because there are, by the way, Brian from the Beach Boys was kind of renowned for his ability to provoke chord changes that were intentionally targeted such reactions. So anyway, musicians, believe it or not, are actually, not surprisingly perhaps, much more prone to having that physical response to music as well. So the ASMR, which is the non-auditory version, which I even say is even more intense, actually, ASMR could serve as an intervention for those with elevated levels of neuroticism and anxiety, a new study finds. A study has uncovered new evidence linking higher levels of neuroticism and anxiety with the ability to experience a deeply relaxing sensation known as ASMR. During ASMR, a person experiences tingling sensation. We covered that. Previous research has suggested that people capable of experiencing ASMR may have elevated levels of neuroticism. However, the precise link between ASMR and personality traits has been unclear. To help clarify, colleagues asked 36 volunteers who experience ASMR and 28 non-experiencers to watch a video meant to trigger ASMR. The participants completed several questionnaires to evaluate their neuroticism, general tendency to experience anxiety. That's neuroticism. Before and after watching the video. Statistical analysis of the participants' responses found that ASMR experiencers had higher levels of neuroticism and anxiety, as well as higher levels of state anxiety before watching the video. However, this type of anxiety was reduced after watching the video, and ASMR experiencers reported a greater level of benefit from the video. In contrast, non-experiencers did not undergo a reduction in state anxiety after the video. So there you go. Further analysis suggests that the differences in neuroticism and anxiety between ASMR experiencers and non-experiencers statistically accounted for observed difference in the pre and post video change in anxiety, highlighting the potential importance of these personality traits. Overall, these findings suggest that ASMR experiencers may be characterized by greater levels of neuroticism as well as anxiety disorders and more than non-experiencers. They also suggest that ASMR could serve as an intervention for individuals with elevated levels of neuroticism and anxiety in general. However, the authors note further research is needed to address you get it. So, interesting study there. So thank you to Katerina for that one. And that brings me to a tweet I found yesterday from my friend Om Malik, who some folks on stage, I think Dr. Fran would know, old school geeks know Om Malik. Certainly Francine Hardaway does. Om is a very legit OG of OGs of tech journalism. Like, he was really one of the first tech bloggers. He's a very loved individual across Silicon Valley. He's now found himself as an investor at True Ventures as one of the partners, and is a damn fine investor. Really one of the lovable teddy bears of Silicon Valley, honestly. And tweets. He has a Twitter account, which is not surprisingly Om. He's also a dear friend of the Twitter founders. And we've had dim sum together on more than one occasion with Evan and Om and the family and everybody. It's lovely gatherings there. Anyway, Om did a tweet yesterday that sounded a bit familiar. He says, there was a time when tabloids wrote clever headlines to attract readers and build followings. Today, headlines and stories are written with triggers to make someone or anyone angry so it could get engagement and go viral. This is real long-term damage caused by social media, essentially. And I agree that that's exactly what's happening, that journalism is cashing in and using triggering headlines they're trading in truth for triggers, for engagement, which has long-term damage. I totally agree, and I've said that many times here. So I retweeted that one from my friend Om. I'm glad to see Om sharing that opinion. The next one is Apple privacy changes have cut $278 billion from 4 big tech firms. Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms are feeling the loss of user tracking permissions after Apple implemented iOS 14.5. And we covered this in real time as it happened, and now we're seeing it in the quarter reports months later, where Facebook is now having to pay the piper and explaining to their investors that, we are getting our business model torn to shreds because Apple's no longer sharing the data that it used to, that we grew to be overly dependent on. And
so, Tyler, let me give you a little update on that, which is what's interesting about that. In the previous quarter, Sheryl Sandberg had made a statement that I and a lot of people, because that was the first question on the conference call, by the way, this time, that she had alluded that they had done workarounds and that they had kind of mitigated, a lot of it. And so last quarter, their stock didn't take that much of a hit on that issue, but Snap did, because Snap didn't mitigate it at all. But this quarter, Snap apparently has found some solutions because they had less of an impact on Snap in the quarter that just reported. So, and so I think it's really interesting. People don't really get to dig that deep into it. What are these exact mitigation, strategies? Because, I think one of the reasons Facebook sold off so much the other day was based on the previous quarter's call, because Facebook didn't have the issues that Snap did, or even Spotify did, that they thought, well, Facebook's figured it out. Now they've kind of acknowledged they haven't exactly figured it out, So I think those are different things. And I also think the sheer number of advertisers and the size of the advertisers are different from Facebook to Snap, and that's causing some difference. But yeah, obviously it's an issue for everybody. But I just wanted to point out that there are apparently some mitigation things that companies can do. But Facebook implied last quarter that they had it done, and apparently not. When it shows up this quarter, so.
That another way of to kind of put some different words on that is it's management setting expectation based on what they can see, right? So just that's you are spot on a really important point with regards to. I remember in this room the difference last quarter when the first kind of quarter after the Apple policy change, exactly what you're speaking to, and that's if it's I'll just say that there's management is also being highly looked at very closely in these companies to see how they manage this challenge or pivot.
Okay, next up we've got Evan shares this one that China condemns U.S. ban on telco, urges need for fair treatment. Chinese government has lashed out at the U.S. government's decision to revoke China Unicom's license and vows to safeguard the legitimate rights of
talk about the pot calling the kettle black or what?
Yeah.
Come
on. Exactly right. And then the next one's also from Evan. This is an interesting one. Spotify booted a podcaster over COVID misinformation, but it wasn't Joe Rogan. How interesting. And even more interesting, perhaps, is that he's considered a far-right podcaster by the name of Stu Peters, who I'm not familiar with. But anyway, that's the headline from Yahoo. That Spotify booted a far-right podcaster, Stu Peters, over COVID lies, it says, or misinformation, I assume. Would be an acceptable alternative term there. Any information on that, Evan?
Well, this guy was a hardcore anti-vaxxer, nutcase. So he was also small time compared to Joe Rogan. So clearly, it didn't matter revenue-wise or otherwise. So he was an easy target, it seems.
Okay, next up is from Tomoko that the Kingdom of Tonga may adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, says former member of parliament. The Kingdom of Tonga may adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, according to a former member of Tonga's parliament, Lord Fuzitua.
Hey, by the way, Tyler, on the previous point I made, Snap is actually up like 49% today because they reported yesterday. So, I mean, that gives you, some indication. It would be great. I don't know if you know anybody, Tyler. It would be great if you can get some people on here who actually are involved with like digital ad sales and like who can dig into the, couple of layers down how this stuff actually works and how they can do workarounds, because they just talk about it like in a real 30,000 foot views on these conference calls. And I don't think the analysts who follow these companies don't even understand it themselves to ask penetrating questions. And so rather than just take these statements at face value about like how they we can do a workaround or we can't do a workaround or we're doing is I actually really think it would be interesting to understand the mechanics of it. So
through that. Okay.
Can I add some context to that with respects to the ads component or ecosystem they had in place? So they have a network of various ad capabilities. So your traditional image ads, your video ads, your story ads, but also they have the augmented reality ads that brands essentially create campaigns. We create augmented reality lenses for them, and then they run essential ads through a fixed period of time. And so they're generating revenue from that as well. But they also have a component where they're licensing off some of their APIs. So like Camera Kit, for example, Login Kit, Bitmoji. So they actually have like partnerships with different companies that give up those capabilities, and they're able to incorporate the augmented reality or Bitmoji or whatever login capabilities within their respective apps. Or like, for example, in Samsung, they have a particular phone that when you open up the camera, it launches Snapchat's augmented reality camera features. So they have different business components, not just the ads network. And so it's a very diverse kind of portfolio of generating revenue aside from your typical structure that you would see at Facebook. Nevertheless, Facebook has a
multiple product, I guess, products within their own ecosystem. They have, Snapchat, they have Instagram, Messenger, obviously the Oculus network, and everything that goes under the Meta umbrella as well.
All right. So the next one is from Evan, that the Boston Federal Reserve and MIT, also in Boston, unveil a model for electronic cash as policymakers consider whether to launch it. The Boston Fed announced progress towards developing the U.S. digital dollar, unveiling code that can process 1.7 million transactions per second. Here it comes. And as a related one, I'll jump ahead to one that I know is in my tabs here. There it is from BB from South China Morning Post. I think Evan others also had this one. That from China's fully cashless society, a step closer as 2 Chinese banks ditch the traditional fiat currency for the new digital renminbi, the digital currency, the yuan. 2 small private banks announced an end to services for banknotes and coins in the latest sign that China is moving towards full cashless society. Yeah, we'll give it 6 months. They'll all ban it. Yeah,
And especially as Beijing city included. So that's the capital.
And then BB has one from the BBC that Jeff Bezos' super yacht will see a historic bridge dismantled. Rotterdam has confirmed it will dismantle a historic bridge to allow Jeff Bezos' super yacht to fit through.
Wow.
If it reach enough. But I just wonder why, if they know that's how huge it would be, why they didn't, decide to be assembled across the bridge, just the height that will exceed the bridge. So I think that is something, very strange.
You got to look at the background
Hey,
of that deal and
Tyler.
see who's paying for what.
Tyler, where did you read? What is the date on this?
I saw it yesterday, and somebody shared it today.
Yeah, it says that they may dismantle part of the bridge for Jeff Bezos' super yacht.
No, they actually do have to. It turns out they do have to actually dismantle it. And what's interesting is the cost is being borne. I think BB was the one who
Wait a
said,
second,
"Didn't you
dismantle
know?"
a bridge in Holland?
Yeah,
How would you know that? I'm actually reading from the Dutch papers.
Oh, well, this is what I had just read yesterday. Is they
And
do actually have to. They do have to dismantle it, and what I was interested in was who's paying for that. And it turns out, I think BB said that that wouldn't the bridge or the yacht manufacturer have known? The yacht manufacturer should have known. So the yacht manufacturer is actually paying for that, but probably going to pass through some of those costs to Bezos. That's just that's an error that they should have known. Like you were going to trap it in a harbor if you didn't actually accommodate the way out. So I thought it was really interesting. Like they didn't go to court or anything. It was just like I thought it was actually very reasonable how they came to a decision there. It was like surprising. It was like, oh, we made a mistake. We'll take care of it. So.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But the Dutch actually last night said that they may not do it.
Oh, blocked by. Oh, well, that's interesting.
Well,
what is he going to do?
The city of Rotterdam. The Rotterdam does have a right to do that.
No. I didn't think that they wouldn't. I just think that's.
You know what's even funnier is that the actual, which is really funny, you brought that up. If you could recognize that most of the luxury yachts, because I have a couple of clients here, most of the luxury yachts, if you look at who makes them, they're manufactured in Holland. Because the Dutch really know seafaring vessels, and Ocean Co., which is the Dutch custom yacht company that built the boat, that's building that boat, said that they couldn't comment on the projects that were under construction. So I think what's happening right now is that they're saying they're holding off on giving an answer to it because the boat has a clearance of 130 feet, but it's also, it has to see whether or not this is really going to be a yacht that's going to be in use. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to tear apart a really historic bridge just to get one billionaire's super yacht through, especially when it was designed by a Dutch super yacht company. The Dutch will probably find a way to mitigate that because it's also a heritage bridge.
That's embarrassing, I think, for that manufacturer. I really think that that's something like, I don't know how the grapevine works in yacht building or whatever, but I would think that that would actually have some sort of implication. But what would they do if they couldn't take down the bridge? Do they just take apart the yacht and then reconstruct it on the other side?
Actually,
What do
that's
you
an
do?
interesting question because I believe that this yacht is not completed. And actually, Tyler, this goes with your whole New York Times and all these conversations that they have, with the way they write the articles, because I'm not sure this yacht is even completed.
I want to.
If I may.
I just invited somebody with a ridiculously Dutch name on stage.
Pew, pew, pew.
Go ahead, Rob.
We have a Dutch person on stage. Pew, pew.
Or as we say in
Rob
Dutch.
is a singer also,
Right.
FYI. It's very cool. You can hear him sometimes on Clubhouse in some of the rooms. So, hey Rob, it's been ages. It's good to see
Hey,
Rob,
you.
are you Dutch and speak Dutch as well?
Jazeker.
Is goed. Ik spreek een klein beetje Nederlands taal, is uitdaging.
Mooi. Okay,
Ik woon
so
in Amsterdam.
a little bit extra information. So it's not in Rotterdam. It's not the full government or the political party. It's just one political party in the government that is against it, and they deconstructed the bridge a few years ago. So it's possible that they are going to do it again. As long the money is there's not really a problem. The problem that they're facing is the infrastructure problem, and the infrastructure problem is that they can allow traffic for 2 weeks around that area. So I think they need to sort this out. And if we know something about if I go back in history and know something about politics and economics here in the Netherlands, as long as you pay, you can get things done.
Are you sure they're not American over there? Because that sounds awfully familiar.
Well,
Yeah,
that's because the Dutch
kind of
invented the U.S.
American.
currency. The Dutch are very connected to New York, for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah, so
how do we know that? How do we know that? Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I just wanted to add that the Netherlands is one of the tax safe havens for America, so we have
Of
strong economic
course.
boundary.
Prima.
And how do we know that Bezos just doesn't want to take Rem Koolhaas out to lunch on his yacht?
Okay, well, the next story is from our friend Ted Abramson that Volvo and Northvolt poach Tesla's head of Gigafactory Berlin to lead a new 50 gigawatt hour factory in Sweden, which makes a lot of sense because Northvolt is run by one of my very dear friends, Peter Carlson, who used to be the chief product officer and head of supply chain at Tesla, who you may recall me, if you're a regular tech newser, you've no doubt heard me tell the story of Peter resigning from Tesla, and we talked on a flight from LA to Stockholm, where he's originally from, and when he decided to launch Northvolt after the Model 3 pre-order success to build the batteries for the Germans so that the Germans could make EVs. And he's been having great success with that, and now he's just announced this massive partnership with Volvo, not surprisingly. So Volvo and Northvolt announced plans today to build their previously announced battery gigafactory in Gothenburg, Sweden, which is where Volvo's based, actually. And now the headline is that they've hired a Tesla executive to lead the new plant, which is going to make Elon incredibly angry. It will have an annual capacity of up to 50 gigawatt hours to support the production of 500,000 electric cars per year, with operations aimed to start by 2025. Northvolt is a battery startup founded by two former Tesla executives who worked on Tesla's first gigafactory in Nevada with Panasonic. The company plans to recreate the gigafactory concept of having a giant battery factory producing the gigawatt hour level of battery cells for electronic cars. It received backing and started factory projects with several automakers, including Volkswagen, and last year it added Volvo to the list, with a plan to build a new battery factory in Europe to support the Swedish automaker's EV ambitions. In December, Northvolt announced that it started battery cell production at its first gigafactory, leading more credibility to its several other battery factories in partnership with automakers. There we go.
Yeah, but Tyler, Tesla is already producing around 900,000 vehicle. I mean, they delivered 900,000 vehicle around about figure this year, and the plans are to shift to a different kind of battery in future.
Yes, well, there will always be newer and better batteries. However, Tesla is going to make batteries for Tesla, while Northvolt's going to make batteries for all the other car companies combined.
Yeah, but the maximum number you said is 500,000 per year.
For this one factory, they're going to make 100 factories.
Tyler, who's the owners of Volvo today? Is that the Chinese ownership today?
Yes, it is Geely from China.
I've been wondering about this, and in the early days of PCs, you always wanted to wait another week or two to get another upgrade in the CPU or the hard drive or whatever. And to what extent are sales going to be hurt by virtue of the fact that there are now batteries that propose to double the range? And has there been any discussion about swappability of batteries to anticipate that kind of delay in purchase based upon the promise of twice the range in the not too distant future?
Yeah, there is talk of that, of designing the car so that the batteries can be swapped and upgraded as in that sense. So next from Katerina from Reuters that Russia and China get together to tell NATO to stop expansion. Moscow backs Beijing on Taiwan. Oh, wow. What a surprise. I'm so incredibly shocked. As I told you, it's America is telling the world to pick a side. You can join China along with Russia and Iran, or you can join the West. And that's what's going down. And this headline fits right into what I've already told everybody is happening, and this really makes it all that much more clear. Russia and China on Friday called in a joint statement for NATO to halt its expansion, while Moscow said it fully supports Beijing's stance on Taiwan. And those good old boys, the good guys, Putin and Xi, the nice guys, they're getting together to fight off the big evil West.
Yeah, this is really disturbing. It's a new Cold War and arms race and everything else. And there's evidence that Putin is kind of holding off the invasion until after the Olympics, right? So he's sort of waiting until Xi gives him the signal, okay, now it's okay to go into Ukraine.
So China and Russia proclaimed a deep strategic partnership on Friday to balance what they portrayed as the malign global influence of the United States, as China's President Xi hosted Russia's Vladimir Putin on the opening day of the Beijing Winter Olympics, because Putin, despite not showing up for a lot of the massive global gatherings, did show up for the Olympics, where a lot of the other global leaders have not. Right? I mean, do you see how incredibly similar this is to the lunchroom in high school as to who's sitting at whose tables?
BFF.
Anywho, so Vladimir Putin showed up for the Olympics, and it's Uncle G's best buddy, so they're having a good old time, and they're making some announcements, and it's going to be the good guys versus the rest of us cretins. It looks like Professor Osip wants to speak in Twitter space there. So the next one is from Bibi, from the South China Morning Post, that the Olympics intervenes as a Belgian athlete breaks down in a Beijing isolation room. A tearful racer named Kim Meilemans posts an emotional video documenting her ordeal after being taken to a fresh quarantine facility instead of the Olympic Village. So she has a very tearful video of it from her isolation cell. And the next one is from Shumba, who shares this one from The Verge, that a new company run by former NASA leader aims to build a robotic outpost near the moon, creating a fleet of robotic helpers that can do a variety of tasks near the moon. And Putin and Xi, bouncing back to that one for one more second, meet in Beijing as tensions rise over Ukraine. Putin arrived in China ahead of the Olympics. Putin sat down with Chinese counterpart in a rare in-person meeting where both leaders issued a statement opposing further enlargement of NATO. The meeting takes place as Russia continues to build up troops at the Ukraine border, prompting efforts by the West to defuse tensions. And last but not least, here we go, 9 minutes over. From BB, that oil terminals disrupted after European ports are hit by a cyber attack. Port facilities in Belgium and Germany and the Netherlands have been targeted by large-scale cyber attacks. Oh, wow. I wonder who's that. Is this Portugal at it again? Or maybe Botswana?
Got to be Switzerland.
It's got to be Switzerland. Officials say that the hack began several days ago and has primarily disrupted operations at oil terminals. Oh, oil. I wonder what the significance of oil is geopolitically. Water, food. Oh, energy. Oh, okay. So, oil terminals being disrupted across Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands, preventing tankers from delivering. Interesting. The hackers disrupted operational systems and prevented oil tankers from delivering energy supplies. Oh, interesting. Who could have predicted that? Geez, I wonder if has anyone ever predicted that cyber attacks would preempt actual stronger physical attacks, that they would be the foreshadow and prelude, and that they might target water, food, and energy specifically? I wonder if anyone, Nostradamus comes to mind, perhaps. So,
bald guy, handsome bald guy.
Some handsome bald guy that might have been spouting nonsense repeatedly over the past several weeks and months. Anyway, we'll leave you with that cheerful thought, and we may or may not meet on Saturdays, and we definitely won't meet on Sundays, but we definitely will be back on Monday, so maybe we'll see you on Saturday. Who knows? We play it by ear, depending if anything eventful happens, and let's hope there's no attacks on Taiwan or the Ukraine in the meantime.
No,
Wait, on a
no.
very light question though. Like, I just read that the Olympics started yesterday. We watched
today
so
is the
little
opening
regular.
ceremony.
We watched so little regular TV. I had no idea. Is anybody else unaware of whatever is happening? Like the things that ordinarily get broadcast? Because we're just completely oblivious.
Opening ceremony. I just watch it.
Okay.
They had some light coverage of curling, which was exciting.
Oh, that's the best.
Curling and exciting, man. I don't think so.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Lots of snowflakes.